Hello, and welcome back. And Chuck and Lila are here finally again. We've been enjoying our family over the last couple of weeks, and apologize for not getting things recorded. But we love you, and we're here. And this morning we're going to spend some time talking about affirmation.
Yes.
She thinks she knows.
We talked about this together a few days ago when we thought we were going to do it. I've come to the conclusion we've had a lot of crazy weather, and it kind of what goes on in here is almost as unpredictable as what goes on outside.
Right.
Because the days we need to be healthy and have energy. So, and the good thing for you is you can watch this whenever it's at the best time for you. Today we are going to discuss affirmation, which is the first of the love languages. When we talked about it and read through Gary's book again, we had one approach, and as I've said before, by the time we sit down here, sometimes it takes a completely different approach.
Right.
And words of affirmation.
Let me make a quick interruption, okay? And the interruption is as we study our love languages, it's really important for us to know our own, so we know how it is that we function and what God's given us. But the most important part of this ministry is that you know your spouse's love language, and then you pray about how it is that you can put on a demeanor that speaks to that love language that she has, because this is for you. And I'm sorry for using the word manipulate, but this is for you to learn how your spouse functions and be able to manipulate it so that you can communicate in a joyful manner.
And when I reread this, I was reminded Gary Thomas has such a wonderful, educated,
Chapman.
Gary Chapman, who does
Thomas is Sacred Marriage.
Oh,
Yeah.
Gary Chapman. That's our daughter, our engineer. She just corrected me. He gives some really important insight, and he talks about the fact that each of us has a love tank, and we have all experienced times when we just aren't feeling motivated. We aren't interested. And I remember through the years making statements like, I can't be everything to everybody. And that would have been at times where I felt perfectly drained. So even at times when we aren't aware, our own tank is empty.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember working in counseling with young moms, and they would kind of get overwhelmed. Oh my gosh, I got the tank of this kid and this kid and this kid and this kid and my husband's, who's going to fill my tank?
Mm-hmm.
And that really comes down a lot of times is we just have to go to the Lord and, sit before the Lord. And because we're always affirmed and assured and refueled spiritually by spending time with the Lord. But people with God with skin on is my husband. And my tank needs to be filled by him. We have, at this age and at this season of our marriage, we kind of feel like we can speak to the younger us. I love the Mercy Me song when he sings to younger me. So we're speaking to the younger us. And words of affirmation has taken a huge, interesting journey in our marriage, because initially, and most young men, their love languages are words of affirmation and quality and touch. And that's obvious because when they're first married and, the Eros love is crazy, they need that. And, we're not talking about quality, talking about touch today, But I wanted to touch on this because if touch is your husband's language, and it is your job as a mom to keep that tank full, if he is not getting the emotional and physical fulfillment that he requires from us, he requires from his wife, then we're sending our men out ill-equipped to meet the challenges of working with other people, meet the challenges of temptation, meeting the challenges of being able to focus and concentrate. And we'll talk more about touch later. But that's an affirming thing. Men need to be affirmed.
And in part, the touch is a portion of it. In other words, there's more to touch than just this one thing. Right. But God recommends that we touch each day, verbally or physically. Mm-hmm. And a touch simply on a daily basis can be a phone call. Hi, honey, how you doing? I love you. Or a pat on the back as he goes out the door, or a pat on her back as she goes out the door, or as you're just walking by. And guys, I don't recommend a pat on the, derriere. That's not going to get it.
But that's where his touch is.
That's where that's where his touch
and
is.
Bottom line is his
right.
touch need is sexual.
Right, and it's just you can touch each other during the day, which we call that pre-foreplay, but that brings out this filling of the love tank that you need, right. Because if you expect to get what you're dreaming about that night, you need to fill the love tank before you get there, or it's kind of like, why did I bother? Because she's just not interested.
Well, and also for women, they want to be loved and held and touched for other than sexual purposes. Right. So it just becomes a real challenge.
That's love tank affirmation that you can both do on a daily basis. It really doesn't take a whole lot to make happen. But again, it's got to come from the heart and from the Lord, and He's the enabler. It can't come from some thing that you say, well, I haven't touched him yet, so I'm going to touch him because that's what I have to do. Okay, it's not a have to, it's a want to.
Well, but sometimes we need to do it because God requires it too. So
and we've, through the years, we've always had that ability to be that close. And I think the Lord just gave us that gift for each other. Although there have been many times that I've really let her down and not filled that love tank because of things that get in the way, like extra activities out of the house, like coaching or fishing or hunting or any of those things. That tends to miss the fact that the Lord says, die to myself and fill her needs first. Fill my children's needs first. So
and this is amazing because we had not talking about touch, but there must be a lot of people right now needing that, and we will get on that.
Yeah.
But in the sequence of this, it's affirmation. When Chuck was a young man, and it was making me feel my heart kind of hurt this morning because as a child, undoubtedly you had the need of affirmation.
Sure.
You did not receive affirmation at home.
I saved it all for you.
But when you went to the Boys Christian League at 7 or 8, then the affirmation of your self-worth and your value was instilled in you then. And that's why it's so important to know all of our children need that. The children need all of the love languages. But anyway, in the affirmation, Chuck needed it. One of my spiritual gifts is encouragement. So I am an encourager. Mm-hmm. So affirming comes from encouragers. But I was we were married 20 years, before we started the ministry. And when I realized how much affirmation was needed there after you would teach her something, and you needed to hear from me that yes, you were right on, that glorified the Lord, or next time I wouldn't say this or this and this. We used to go through that. So anyway, through the years, affirmation, and that was not necessarily my need. That didn't fill my tank. It filled your tank. And mine was service. And that's how I show love, was service. When we were young, we painted our house inside and out every 2 years. You always maintained and landscaped the yard, the things that were important to me. And I felt fulfilled because those were priorities to you too. As the years went on and it got busier and busier, I started doing the yard work, mostly for exercise, but plus I would do that so that on Saturdays you didn't have chores to do. I would get the chores done so that on Saturday we could play. So then as we aged, it has taken an entirely different role in our relationship.
You want me to give them an example?
Okay.
Okay. The hearts and the Valentine's Day that I forgot?
No, you already told that story.
Already told them that?
Yeah. So,
okay, what about you want to do
But that wasn't affirmation. Well, that was gifts. But yeah, so that didn't bless me the way you did that.
But do you want to do the one about your mother and mother-in-law, the day that I forgot about or more or less ignored, Mother's Day?
No.
No?
That's not
okay.
where we're
Well,
going.
let's move
we'll
on.
Tell that
okay.
story.
Okay.
That was out of expectations. Okay.
I lost the understanding that Lila's love language was works of, what is that? What's the other one?
Service.
Service, basically serving her. And so if I brought her home a big bouquet of flowers, that might work for about an hour, maybe even through the night. But the next day it was just kind of went down because flowers wasn't her, gifts was not her thing. Her washer had been broken for some period of time, could have been repaired fairly easy, and I just kind of ignored it. And that's where we ran into a problem of we never really did a slow melt, but we just that there's something between us needs to be taken care of, and we're kind of ignoring each other and treating each other a little bit wrong, and it's because she's thinking about what I'm ignoring,
Right.
and I'm oblivious to it. And here's where I always tell the guys, as early as you possibly can, learn to be a mind reader, okay? The big one is, oh, honey, I have everything I need. There isn't anything that I need. You don't have to buy me anything for Christmas or my birthday. And that is a lie from the pit of hell.
Okay, well, so
okay?
that's on gifts.
And so, but the point being is that she has something else in mind.
And I have something else in mind right now.
Okay, and so take off. And
So now
usually
you
it's something
see
she wants you to do.
But you see the real us. So in affirmation was never something I needed to fill my tank. Now, in this season of our life and marriage, I didn't realize how important it was to me. It was your language, but in this season, you're not doing what you used to do
No.
either. So, so I feel like we're on a scavenger hunt. Okay, well, and especially for you, well, that worked 30 years ago, but that's not working today. What do we do?
Mm-hmm.
So in affirmation, and Gary says, if you are not a talker, if you are not a communicator, but your spouse needs your affirmation, then you need to watch love stories and movies. You need to read greeting cards every time you hear something, oh gosh, I bet my wife would appreciate hearing that, write it down, because it's not something that comes natural to you. So you have to train yourself, and you can't say, well, that's just not me, because it is the fuel that your spouse needs by God's design, and He puts you together to empower and strengthen each other. So the story that I'm going to tell about what affirmation is right now in our relationship, I'm the caregiver, and today is a good day.
Say that again.
I am the caregiver, and today is a good day. Days up to today haven't been real easy days for you. So there's times that, and then if he's impatient with me, or and I've told him, you know what, if I were your hired help, when I walked out of here, I wouldn't come back in. Or if we were at a nurse's station, I would tell somebody else, you go back, you go deal with him.
She's told me that too.
Yeah. So the other day, I was in a meltdown, and we've had a lot of medical issues and just a constant roller coaster. So as we were dating, we dated in high school, we always knew that we were each other's destiny. So when it came time to start planning our marriage, our wedding, we started planning it, and he never proposed. And here it is, 54 years. And the other day I said, because what I needed to hear what he would have said to me if he proposed, that, how much you guys know the steps you go through to make that day special, and the words that you say are things that will last her a lifetime. I didn't hear those. And the other day, I sat on the edge of the bed, and he sat on the sofa. And
she made me propose to her.
And fortunately for him, he was very cooperative. And I said, well, what would you say to me? Because I needed that affirmation. It was kind of stunning to me that I needed it. But in this season of our life, I need to hear things that will last me a lifetime, the rest of my life, if the Lord takes you before me. So words of affirmation, and we have to train, and he was willing to give me that fuel. And at the end of that, I said, okay then. And I was fulfilled, and I had heard what I needed to hear. So the challenge, love on each other with words, because even if that isn't your primary love language, it's an important one. Affirming words are kind words. Another thing that the book said that hit that day, affirming words come from humility. And Chuck had to muster up humility that isn't, in this day and age, it's visible and obvious to everyone else, but not always to me.
Well, and the results of that day, and you know that, is that you heard the words of affirmation that you needed.
Right.
And she worked it to a place where I could then understand, because getting old is no picnic, and I can't do what I used to do, because if she needed something done prior to my health problems, I just did it, and so I'm the man. I'm the one that did it, so I get the love credit. Right. Okay? Well, anymore, even if a light bulb goes out, I can't change the light bulb anymore, but you know what? I can do that without impacting her day by managing instead of doing. And it costs a little bit more, but not usually, because Sam's usually around to help me out, or Ron, or somebody is always here, or somebody just flat shows up to help me get done what needs to be done because I can't do it anymore.
Right.
And so what she was looking for is affirmation that she's not going to have to take on putting a new engine in the car.
Right. I don't
Okay.
want to talk cars.
Yeah, and she doesn't even want to talk about buying a car unless it's for her. Okay?
That's true.
And so as how we doing on time?
We're at
Okay, so as we continue this, the words of affirmation are extremely important because they're like an explanation. They're like, okay, well now I understand you clearly where you're coming from, okay, and I'm speaking truth. So many times we don't speak truth to each other, and so starting off with affirmation is a good place because really Lila and I are both the same way. And I needed the affirmation that it was okay for me to manage in a different way,
right.
and for her to ask for the things that she needs to make that okay. So as we go through this next week, and we'll promise to be more diligent as we give you things and talk about things, we're still talking about what's kept us together,
Right.
because we're at a transition now that is very difficult for people.
Well, and we're being very transparent and vulnerable and
Right.
sharing things that even people close to us don't necessarily
Right.
know.
And we'll tell you a couple of stories about that. But the point being is that what's keeping us together then is keeping us together now. And
we
it's
give them a tool
that's
before we
where I'm
went
headed. That's where I'm headed. Okay.
to write it.
What I'd like to see you do is to write down. In other words, once you've identified what your love language is.
Now let's just everybody work on affirming.
Yeah, and what we want you to do is, how do you affirm each other?
Right.
How do you draw each other together? Because God puts you together as two. Okay, and He put two very special people together with special gifts that He created
Right.
for you to use. And so why don't we this week work on writing down a list of what we need for affirmation.
But I was able to
Make
tell
it
you
quick.
what I needed. So on that list, you need to write. And
Right.
one of our exercises in our Preparing Rich is I communicate something that I would really love for you to do, something that I would really bless me.
So let's take the one thing. This week, you both sit down, go out on a date, just go walking down a dirt road talking, and come up with that one thing
Right.
that you need right now
Right.
to be affirmed.
Right.
Okay,
And tell your partner how it would bless you if you received that,
right.
and how you feel when that's absent from
Right.
the relationship.
And it's only words, and
Right.
there's only another part of this that you don't want to leave out, and that's we can go to church. What do we call it now? We
Virtually.
can stream to church every Sunday now if we want, and then we also need our prayer time and our time to spend together to pray, so that we're allowed to remember that the enabler for us to be able to do these things is Him.
Right.
Okay, and so you want
And
to
it's
close.
a gift from Him.
You want to close us in prayer?
Lord, we're so needy for you, and we just know that the plans you have for us in our relationship are abundant. So, Lord, open our hearts, open our minds, open our ears, open up each of us to our soulmate, the one that you have given us, Lord, and help us to understand this very personal issue of our love tank. And we glorify you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Fill up those love tanks. Come on, guys. You'll be blessed.